All right, let's call this planning and zoning meeting to order. Brian, I think you had an announcement, and then can you call the roll?
Sure. So for the 284 New Canaan Ave application, the applicant has asked us to continue the hearing to our next meeting. So we'll not be doing public comment tonight, and there'll be no presentation of the hearing. So when we get to that, what we're going to do is we're just going to open the hearing and immediately continue it to our September 3rd meeting at 6 p.m. via Zoom. And with that, I'll call the roll. Mr. Williams?
Present.
Ms. Langalis?
Here.
Mr. Rowena? Mr. Rowena?
Here.
Ms. Lankowski?
Here.
Mr. Schulman?
Here.
And Mr. Bryce.
Here. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Diana's seated for this meeting, so
Thank you.
of course. So for members of the public, that means that there are no public hearings tonight and no public participation tonight. So please join us for the meeting where we will be hearing about that application. So to begin, we have our first application that we will review, and that is 2025-62 Coastal Management Act. Christopher Ching, 4 Split Rock Road. Construct a flood-compliant deck with a screened porch and steps to grade, and a new patio at a single-family residence with a 50-foot of tidal wetland. Report and recommended action. Who is presenting for this application?
I believe I am. This is Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Can you give us a summary of the application and anything you wish to share with us?
Sure. Yeah. So we're proposing to replace the existing 16 by 14 foot deck. And there's a lower sort of porch underneath it, but it is not currently screened in. So we're replacing that same footprint. We're also adding a stamped concrete patio in the backyard, roughly 15 by 20 feet. The total disturbed area is about 525 square feet, which is modest to the sort of 20,000 square foot lot. The property is within 50 feet of tidal wetlands, which is why we're here tonight. In July of this year, a soil scientist came to the site and flagged the wetlands boundary. They placed markers to show exactly where the wetlands are and the upland areas begin. Our surveyor mapped those flags, and our project footprint is outside of the flagged wetlands area. So while we are in a regulated buffer zone, we are not disturbing the wetlands themselves. The increase in impervious coverage is very modest, from 8.2% to about 9.3%, which remains well within the acceptable limits. Since I am in a flood zone, we've designed the porch to be flood compliant. That was a big concern of mine. The porch sits underneath an elevated deck with screened walls rather than solid construction. This ensures that if water rises, it can flow through without obstruction, which is consistent with FEMA and local requirements. The new patio will be at grade, so it poses no additional flood hazard, and it will be stamped, so it will have sort of grooves to allow water to flow. In the backyard, I've lived here for 7 years, I've never experienced any flooding issues. There is drainage all around the house, so the water properly irrigates without any flooding issues. All the improvements are at the rear of the house, so it's not visible from the street, and they enhance the property without changing the character of the neighborhood. Finally, I just want to note that I'm mindful of the environment. I avoid using any chemical lawn treatments that would affect the marsh. I've partnered with the city and the Woodward Park grant to allow trees to be planted on my property, and I've even given them access to my water to establish the plantings. So I'm very, in support of just maintaining the look and being environmental friendly around the marsh. And we've designed this project to balance the usability, compliance, and environmental sensitivity. And if the commission has any recommendations, we're committed to following best practices.
Thank you, Mr. Ching. Amelia, did you have any comments on this application?
No additional comments. I think that was summed up very well. Yeah, and exactly like you said, the reason it's before you tonight is because the area of work is within 50 feet of those tidal wetlands. And I have a very brief draft resolution for you all to take a look at. And it does, yeah, it's zoning compliant, flood compliant. So next step would just be getting those zoning permits and building permits.
If I may, do have a question.
Please, yeah.
And that is, you've indicated that patio is going to be concrete. Does it need to be concrete? Could it be a pervious surface?
It could be. That was just the initial design. It's going to be throughout the porch and just carry through. So it'd be kind of one big slab.
Thank you.
And make sure you're muted because
Are there other questions for the applicant or for staff? Is there a motion for this application?
I'll
make-
move.
I heard, I think Tammy first, Richard second. Thank you for pulling up the draft resolution, Amelia. Any comments or modifications to this draft resolution?
I would just like to ask, in my experience as a real estate agent, I actually sold this house many years ago. So I don't know if I need to recuse myself or if that just makes me more qualified. And I'm not sure who to ask because Chapin, you might not have that experience, but maybe Lou, do you have that experience?
I see, having sold it years ago, I see no conflict.
Very good. Thank you.
And I'll just note that Ms. Jordan Byron joined us at 6:08, I believe.
Thank you. Great. Amelia, do you mind calling the roll for vote?
Not at all. Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Langallis,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryce,
Yes.
Commissioner Rowena,
Yes.
Commissioner Lankowski,
Yes.
and Commissioner Schulman.
Yes.
And, oh, sorry, I guess Commissioner Jordan Byron joined us in the middle of that, so I will not call on her.
All right.
Hi, present.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you're here, JJ.
All right,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep. All right. So that passes unanimously. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Cheng.
Thank you.
Oh,
Appreciate your
Chapin,
time.
Oh,
Could I say
yes.
one thing post, we didn't really, sorry, the discussion thing went so quickly. I just wanted to thank the
course.
applicant for not using pesticides and working with the city because Parks and Recs has that park back there. I think that's commendable and I wish, I'd just like to thank the applicant for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Agreed. So our next application is 2025-60 site plan review for Sound Communities and regulation review for 79 South Main Street, District 2, Block 57, Lot 7, zoning regulation text amendment, application regarding pocket park private frontage types, and site plan review application to construct a 7-story, 68 dwelling unit mixed use development. And this is a preliminary review. Who's presenting this application tonight?
I am Commissioner Bryce.
Great. Please go ahead and start, Ms. Suchi, or Attorney Suchi.
Thank you, Commissioner Bryce. Appreciate it. Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Liz Suchi. I'm a partner at Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy. Our office is 1055 Washington Boulevard in Stamford. I represent Sound Communities, Inc., which is the applicant, and it is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Norwalk Housing Authority. Present this evening, in addition to Adam Babilski, the Executive Director of the Norwalk Housing Authority, is Lisa Endo, the project manager for this project, Layla Martin of Sound Communities, Vincent Hines, professional engineer with Redness and Mead, Adam Palmer, the project architect with Amenta Emma, and perhaps Eric Rains may be on the call, although he was traveling up. Eric is there. Hi, Eric. So that's the project team for you. You may hear from some of them, but not all, since this is preliminary review. So thank you for having us on your agenda tonight. Just by way of housekeeping, the text amendment and site plan applications were submitted on July 25th. Neighbors were notified of the submission of those applications by certificate of mailing on July 30th, and the certificate of mailing was returned to the staff either July 30th or August 1 and should be in the permanent file. The property, as it was mentioned, is at 79 South Main Street. It's bordered to the east by South Main Street, to the west by Chestnut Street, and to the north and south by other developed properties. This is considered a through lot since it is bordered on both sides by a street. So there's Chestnut Street to the west and South Main Street to the east, thereby making this a through lot with street on one side and street on the other. It is zoned CD4. Existing conditions, there are a variety of smaller structures existing on the property today. They offer residential units, and they're being circled right now, anywhere between 2, 3, and maybe I think more than that in one of the other buildings. There is also a structure that fronts on South Main Street that has some retail in its retail component fronting on South Main Street, including a locksmith, as I believe. The proposal is to redevelop this site with a brand new structure, 7 stories of ground floor parking with the stories residential above, 68 units, 64 would be 1 bedroom, 4 would be 2 bedroom. They would all be for low-income seniors who earn no more than 30 to 50% of the state adjusted median income. All of the units therefore are considered affordable under the city's affordable housing regulations. All of the existing buildings would be demolished, and tenants, there would be assistance with tenants to relocate them, both the commercial and the retail and the residential tenants. The proposal is to locate the building right along Chestnut Street on the west side, but on the east side to create a pocket park between South Main and some of the parking that is on the eastern portion of the building. Part of this proposal, in addition to the site plan, is to amend the regulations to allow for a pocket park to be situated along the street. If we were to comply, if we were to move forward with the regulations as currently proposed, the structure would need to be street to street. It would have to front on Chestnut Street, no less than 6, no more than 12, the same on South Main Street. So you'd have this very large, ominous building that is from street to street. We're proposing something smaller than that so that there would be the ability to have some green space along South Main Street, create a park on a stretch of South Main and in a very congested section of Norwalk that doesn't really have a lot of park and a lot of green space. And we think this is a better proposal than having the structure be street to street with the through block requirement that we have. So the text amendment, as has been indicated, is to address the through block situation, to allow a pocket park to be a frontage type in the zone, the CD4 zone. There are very few through blocks in the CD4 zone, just a handful. But we think this would be a nice addition to South Main with robust landscaping, cleverly and appropriately designed by Eric Rains. It would be a nice break along that South Main corridor. The site plan is rather straightforward. It is, as I said, 7-story structure, 68 units, 64 1-bedroom, 4 2-bedroom, with the appropriate site parking, landscaping, lighting, EV charging stations. So far, in the past 3 weeks, we have received the health department sign-off. We are working on comments received from Public Works and WPCA, and we're waiting for comments and/or sign-offs from TMP and SNU. And also there are some comments we received from the fire department, which we're working on as well. That's a brief overview of what this project is all about. If you'd like, we can have Vincent Hines of Rendison Mead walk you through the site plan a little more in depth. And also then Adam Palmer could also walk you through the architectural plans if you'd like to have more information about that at this stage. And a public hearing is necessary on the text amendment, and we would anticipate that being scheduled for September 17th, I think, is the second meeting in September. And site plan application, a public hearing is discretionary on your part. So that is in a nutshell what the project is all about, where it is, what we're proposing. But at this point, if you'd like to hear from Mr. Hines and then Mr. Palmer, we're happy to provide you with some more information.
Attorney Sacchi, I'd like to ask a question of our staff. I've reviewed this fairly carefully, and it's rather typical of the work that the Housing Authority has been doing recently. It's well thought out, and it's a somewhat innovative project. But Brian, my question to you, and I think I've raised this before, on other municipal projects. If this were a private entity proposing 68 housing units, in all likelihood, we would at the very least do an architectural review. Why is it we're not doing an architectural review?
But to my knowledge, and Liz can correct me if I'm wrong, the redevelopment agency has been working with BFJ on this. So technically there is an architectural review going on. And in this circumstance, the redevelopment agency's been taking care of it.
That is correct.
All right, and can that be shared with us prior to or at the public hearing?
Certainly, Mr. Schulman, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point, Vincent Hines, would you mind just walking the commission through the site plan, stormwater management, parking, and then we'll be followed up by Mr. Palmer.
Sure. Good evening. For the record, Vincent Hines. I'm a licensed engineer with Redness and Mead, and we have offices in Stamford and Wilton. Our office provided the engineering services for this development here for Sound Communities. The site itself is about 24,000, a little over 24,000 square feet in size. Currently developed, like Liz said, with 4 buildings of mixed use and multifamily nature. At-grade parking and sidewalks. Under that existing condition, there's 82% site impervious coverage with no formal, means of water quality treatment to our knowledge. And the site runoff kind of splits into 2 segments, with a portion of the site discharging out to the Chestnut Street right away, and a portion going to the South Main Street right away. This proposed site design includes the kind of city standard treescape elements that we're accustomed to, and kind of in connection with more of an extension of what has been installed at 10 Monroe. So you got your city sidewalks with brick banding, any lighting and street trees where we could implement those elements. And that has also been tied in with what the redevelopment agency and TMP have been working through with some of the neighborhood sidewalk projects that are ongoing. And then just skipping over here to the drainage plan. The proposed plan here includes an increase to impervious coverage by about 120 square feet, which, although that's an increase, that does include 600 square feet plus or minus of green roof area, which is otherwise kind of pervious and does provide water quality treatment, as they're kind of green roof trays with 6 inches minimum of soil retention for the direct runoff. In addition to those green roof areas, we do have underground infiltration proposed for water quality and runoff reductions. And that system is approximately 40 Coltech units in the uncovered section of the parking. And that'll capture a majority of the roof runoff and a majority of the driveway runoff, with only a portion of the driveway entrance bypassing directly into the South Main Street right away. That system itself will include a meter manhole device as acting as an overflow, which is what helps provide the water quality volume and those runoff reductions indicated before. The remaining roof area will be picked up via pipe and discharged into the Chestnut Street drainage system, where in total that tributary area to Chestnut Street is actually reduced via this development. So in total, 78% of the site area is going to be treated via the green roof and the infiltration system, which is greater than the 75% requirement of the regulations. And with these systems in place, between the reduction in area to Chestnut Street and the infiltration system towards South Main, the runoff flows and volumes tributary to each street are reduced up to and including the 100-year storm. Worth noting, like Liz indicated, we did get a few DPW and WPCA comments issued via a joint memo. Those comments pertain to mostly clarification requests and construction details. No comments result in a change to this site utility plan before you here. And then I think I do want to go back to the first page, kind of as part of this, we're discussing, and I know Adam will get into this as well, the fact that we're doing the pocket park and a significant public realm area where we're creating this connecting walkway between South Main Street and Chestnut Street here on the south side of the building. That if anybody has any further questions on the site plan, I'll be happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions at this stage for Mr. Hines?
Yes, Ms. Suchi, is the parking that's along the South Main side of the property just for the residents
Yes,
of the building?
yes.
Okay, and do you anticipate that it might be a problem that, given it's a busy area, that non-residents might want to park there? I mean, I like the way you've recessed the micro park, as we're calling it, in quite a bit, so it doesn't look like, street parking, but I'm just curious about that.
That's always a question with any open parking lot, that those who don't belong on a site would think that it's public parking. I would suspect that we could incorporate some signage indicating that it's private parking, but I think the depth and the depth of the pocket park and how it's going to be activated with seating and other component parts that Eric has designed will lend itself to making those parking spaces less likely to be used by the public.
Okay, thank you. And is the park open to the public?
The park would be open to the public. And when Mr. Rains comes on, I'm sure he can better describe what the concept is for it. But yes, it would be open to the public.
Thank
With
you.
seating areas and other component parts.
Yeah, I just zoomed in here actually for this kind of this cross-hatched area is all considered part of what we're considering public realm and open to the public, between the park area and then the walkway that I described on the south side of the lot.
So I have a question. Are these apartments also available to seniors in the public, or only those who are in public housing?
I can answer that in that they are available to seniors who meet the income criteria. However, if they're, perhaps Mr. Bavilski, can you answer that maybe better than I, or with greater information than I could provide at this time?
Of course.
Thank
So 49 of the units will be basically public housing replacement. And then the additional 19 units will be at 50% of the area median income. So that's fairly low income, but that would be available to anybody who wished to apply. So any senior can apply for public housing. Any senior would be able to apply. Just similarly, any senior would be able to apply for this housing, but there'll be a separate wait list for these low income housing tax credit units.
And how does one get on the list who is currently not in public housing?
Sure. So once we open the wait list for that building, anyone would be able to apply. We'll publish that information. We'll provide it to particularly to agencies that work with seniors like FCA and the senior center, and make sure that that's out there, that the list is going to be opened, and then it's just, people can apply.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Yep.
Adam, how old is it Leroy Downs that's being replaced? How old is the facility that it's replacing?
I'm going to defer to Lisa, but I believe it's 1960 something.
It's
And is it not possible to rehab those units so that we get a larger gain in senior housing?
So the goal, this is this is sort of the first phase of a phased project, really. And the goal is going to be to tear down Leroy Downs and build up to 150, maybe even 200 units of affordable housing near the train station, ideally.
Oh,
So
great.
that's separate than this. You're not voting on that, anytime soon. This is just about the project at 79 South Main Street. But yes, that is the plan. And we're expecting to receive some vouchers from HUD called Section 18 vouchers. This is a Section 18 RAD redevelopment. And that's based on obsolescence. So basically, we're arguing to HUD, and we expect HUD to agree, that Leroy Downs would cost more really to rehab than it would to tear it down and rebuild it.
Thank you.
Yep.
As a note, I see
So-
that Galen has joined us. Just wanted to call that out for the record.
And one additional question, Adam, if you don't mind. So I'm just reading the article through the Norwalk Hour, and I do see that you are quoted as, if you are a senior, you need public housing. If you need public housing, you can't even get on the wait list at this time. Okay, so you're basically stating the obstacle where they can't get on the list, but you're saying that this is a remedy to it. Is that correct?
Remedy is a powerful word. I would say this is a tiny step in the right direction.
Okay.
Currently, our senior wait list is over 2 years long for public
Wow.
housing.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we need more units. This is a tiny drop in that bucket, but it's an important drop, and we need to keep on building those buckets whenever we can. So now this won't be federal public housing. It's going to be a low-income housing tax credit property, but it'll serve the same income population, which we talk about as the technical term is extremely low income, or ELI, and that's that 30% and below of the area median income.
Right. And that's how it's going to be prioritized.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Sorry, Mr. Pavelski, where is Leroy Downs? What's that address of that property?
Leroy Downs is at 26 Monroe Street, but you'll know it as the corner of MLK and Monroe, right at the South Norwalk train station.
Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you.
State Street sort of goes around it, wraps around it.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just didn't know it by name.
Sure.
Any other questions at this point for Mr. Pavelski or Mr. Hines? Okay, well then I think Adam Palmer, it's you're up, as they say.
Great, thank you. Adam Palmer, I'm a senior associate with Amanda Emma Architects. We are based out of Hartford, and we also have an office in Boston. And before I pull up my drawings to kind of build off of what we were just talking about, we've been working with the Housing Authority on yield studies to determine the best use of the current site where Leroy Downs sits, understanding the complications of redeveloping that site with the residents still in place. So the way that they've been able to propose this redevelopment of 79 South Main Street allows the opportunity to develop this site, relocate the residents out of Leroy Downs, and not put them in the position where they have to live around construction while that site is redeveloped, to then potentially move into a new building and then watch their old building be torn down and then live through the redevelopment of that parcel. So it's great the way they've been able to set the dominoes in place where this project can come first. They wait for it to be done, move, and then without having to look out the window and watch it, the existing site where they are today will be redeveloped. So with that, I will bring you through more of the details of the site and then into the building. And Eric Rains, feel free to jump in here. I'm going to start with a little bit more detail on the site itself. As Vince alluded to, we are proposing as part of this development, starting on the left side at Chestnut Street, a continuous walking path that will go underneath the overhang of the building, heading to the east. And then as you get past the building, it opens up to the entrance to our park. You're surrounded by low ground cover, some additional trees, and then as that walkway continues eastward towards South Main Street, now the walk path will meander its way back into the Pocket Park with some seating areas across the driveway to a continuation of the Pocket Park, again with some seating areas that are insular to the park itself, and then some on this north part of the park, a bench that will then face South Main Street, so that it's a continuation of that public realm space, and then lets the building and the rest of the site just kind of sit and be enveloped by that public realm.
And Adam,
Eric, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that?
yeah, just to sort of give a sense of scale of the seating in this view, there's 6 opportunities for seating, and and as you mentioned, they're separated by vegetation, and they all follow the paving that that we're showing there. And the reason for the irregular edges of the paving is so that it would so that the vegetation could sort of come in and out of the edges of the walkway. And then you'll notice along the driveway that we've done the same thing where we've made the paving a little bit bigger than the actual drive surface to, again, just to blur those lines between vehicular access and a park setting.
Thank you. So now moving to the building itself, we'll start at the ground floor. Again, left-hand side of the page is the Chestnut Street side. The building is positioned along Chestnut Street, which is our principal frontage. The occupied space on this floor, starting on the left, you come to a vestibule with a resident mailroom. Off of that, and then you come into a lobby that is flanked on one side with 2 offices for staff, and then a community room for the residents on the other side. We have utility space here, and then 2 elevators and a stair, which will bring you up to the residential floors above. Moving further through this ground floor plan, there are 20 covered parking spaces, and then an additional staircase, and then a centralized trash collection room on the ground floor. Moving upstairs, here we enter the residential units on floors 2 through 6. There are 12 units on each floor. Each of those units on these floors will be a 1-bedroom unit. There are 2 elevators and 2 staircases to serve the residents. And then on each floor, there is a common shared laundry room and 2 common areas for lounge days. Those common areas are in the center portion of the building that will overlook on this floor an elevated amenity deck for the residents. It sits on top of that first floor structure where the parking is. Here we'll have some seating areas, some vegetation, and a small area for recreational, whether it be bocce or other activities like that. And as I said, these 2 common areas on this floor will sit overlooking that space, and then moving up to floors 3 through 6. Repetition of the floor plan with the 12 residential 1-bedroom units. Again, those common areas that look out over that courtyard, shared laundry, 2 elevators, 2 stairs, and then moving to the 7th floor. The 2 ends of the building set back in compliance with the zoning regulations for a minimum 10-foot setback. And then on the 2 ends, we replace those 1-bedroom units with 2-bedroom units. And then again, in the center of this floor, continuing the 4 1-bedroom units as is repeated from the floors below. Moving up to the roof plan through the mechanical system that we've selected, we have very minimal rooftop equipment, which allows us to maximize the possibility for solar panels. The final design of the solar panel system will be in conjunction with the folks at SNU to understand the electrical needs that are on the house meters and house panels, and how much solar capacity we can provide to offset what is provided on the house panels. Moving to the exterior elevations, here we're showing the two primary elevations, east and west, on the top of the page, establishing in compliance with the current zoning regulations, the base course of the building where we're providing masonry, and then floors 2 through 6 where we have our middle section of the elevation, and then capping that with an architectural element, and then the top floor above that. The floors 2 through 7 have fiber cement siding in compliance with the zoning regs in terms of material selection that is allowed for the building type in this zone. The bottom elevation here shows you the courtyard, the two walls on either end in the tan brown color. Because of our proximity to the property line, there are no windows on those walls. We set the residential units back on that courtyard. That way, where we're allowed to have windows, you have that access into the apartments and the common spaces, and minimize the amount of blank wall space along that property line. Continuing on with elevations, here are just some other minor elevations. These two here on the edges that recess back on the courtyard. And then this bottom elevation, our north-facing elevation, facing 10 Monroe. In the drawing set, we have the materials that are selected to represent the colors and material selections in compliance with the zoning regulations. And then we have a couple of renderings. One comment we did receive from Brian Baker was to clarify the colors shown in this rendering versus the colors on that previous page. The colors are represented here are accurate to the materials themselves. The rendering software we used and the way we applied the sunlight makes this look a little bit brighter and more washed out than it actually would be. So just wanted to clarify that in case anyone else was a little bit confused as to why this looks different than the previous drawing. And then coming around to the South Main Street side, as we've discussed, the pocket park that is proposed, we're showing the mix of the lower ground cover vegetation that surrounds the walking paths with the benches mixed in for the residents and the public at large to access the pocket park, layered with the slightly taller trees that will help mask the open parking area behind from the pocket park and from South Main Street proper. And then some other large-scale details of how we're establishing the architectural elements to create that cap for the midsection that then leads you to the upper portion of the building. So that, I will open it up to any questions that anyone may have regarding the pocket park, the landscaping, and the building itself.
I have a question. Mr. Palmer, I'm sorry I didn't follow you. Are the colors on the rendering correct, or are the colors on the flat plan correct?
The colors on this flat elevation are correct.
Which are very dark. Have other senior housing facilities that you've built have colors that are this dark?
Yeah, we have used a range of colors for our senior housing projects. If I go back to this elevation, we did take care in selecting colors and materials that were complementary to the other residential structures that are around our site. So as not to either mimic or copy what they were doing, but to make our building be harmonious with the neighborhood. In selecting the brick, we wanted to make sure that we were again complementing the brick that's used elsewhere on Chestnut Street and South Main Street. And then using a color and a texture for the fiber cement siding that adds warmth to the facade.
A lot of these people will be moving from a facility which is very different now, and as a senior, I find this the darkness of it a little off-putting. That's just my personal comment. Thank you.
You're welcome. We did make a presentation to the existing residents at Leroy Downs earlier this summer to give them a chance to provide feedback on the floor plans.
That's good.
And then the look and feel of the exterior of the building, and they were all very excited at the possibility of this building moving forward and the chance to move into it.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions at this point for Mr. Palmer? Or even for Mr. Hines? Okay, Eric, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Suchi,
Was the point around lighting conveyed to the residents in the presentation?
I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, I interrupted you. Could you repeat your question?
Was the point around the lighting conveyed to the resident?
Around which part of the lighting?
And the difference between the render and the other image?
It was not, no, but we can follow up with them to make sure they understand the difference between the two. Good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just chiming in because I realize sometimes I can talk fast, and I just want to be clear with the 75% stormwater management criteria that we are treating 78% of the site greater than 75. I just wanted to be clear in case it sounded like I said 70, just for the record.
Thank you. Tammy, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, thank you, Chapin. I happen to agree with Ms. Lankowski that to me, the lighter color seems much more inviting and appealing. But there also is going to be, there is other new construction in that area. And I guess you guys are the artists and the architects, you would balance it out. But I would think lighter might be more energy efficient too, if in the hot weather. And I had another question, but it escaped me. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I have a question.
I think it was a bit more for a sleek.
I have a question while you think of yours, Tammy. As part of the presentation, you were describing how the solar panels on the roof that you needed to work with SNU to figure out the correct sizing and such. One of the questions I have is the idea for the solar panels to offset electricity in the common space, or is this for helping out with utilities for residents? What does the arrangement look like?
So based on the arrangement that SNU has with their purchasing of electricity, it would be based on electrical use for any common areas, site lighting, building lighting, but not for the residential units themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Why wouldn't you make it include the utility or electric use for the residents?
The residential units are required to have their own separate meters, regardless of whether the utilities are paid by the housing authority or not. So since they're metered separately, through working with SNU on the Meadow Gardens redevelopment project, we understood from them how their arrangement works in how you can offset the electrical use through solar, and it can only go against any electrical panels or meters that are tied back to the house meter.
Interesting. I think our commission could use a lesson on some of those rules and regulations, but thank you.
Are there other questions or comments about this application?
Mr. Rains, do you have anything else to add from what you had originally presented, or?
We kind of went through it. Certainly if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Do you guys want to bring up the text amendment, the proposed text amendment, to showcase that and talk through that briefly?
Well, we presented multiple components to it, but basically the crux is, since, as I said before, this is a through lot, we have that issue of how to create this building, that it's not property to street to street. So part of it is to not require that the frontage and the front setback requirements be on both sides of a lot that's a through block, except when there's a pocket park on one side. That's one of the revisions. We also suggested revising principal front setback when we have, again, a pocket park. And then there were also some other technical revisions to the district standards for private frontage types to include pocket parks, and similar adjustments to the regulations, all to accommodate the pocket park concept, rather than having to have frontages on both and structures that address both. That's all set forth in the text amendment application. There were, I think, 4 or 5 component parts and regulation sections that we proposed to be adjusted.
Thank you. Do you have any other components you want to touch on, Attorney Sachin?
At this point, we don't. We will work through any comments, additional comments from staff and from the other municipal departments, and secure those approvals prior to the next meeting. It would be helpful if this project could move forward without a public hearing as to the site plan application, recognizing full well that the text amendment application does require a public hearing. We're on a tight time frame to make sure we get approvals in hand so that the Housing Authority can move forward with this project this year. So that's all we have to present to you right now. If you'd like to see us back again in 2 weeks, that's fine. But I suspect that now the public hearing would be scheduled for 17th of September on the text amendment. And if my dates are right, then we'll move forward with that. I have nothing else to add at this point. I think our team has provided you with more than a preliminary review. But if you have questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. Brian, do we need to make a determination tonight as to whether or not we're going to hold a public hearing for this site plan?
Yeah, it'd be helpful.
Okay, sure.
I mean, staff doesn't have a preference. Generally, it's.
I appreciate Attorney Suchi's concern about moving this forward. My concern is, given the scale of the project, I think we would be exercising our proper due diligence if we did hold a public hearing.
I agree with that sentiment. Is there any other discussion on the public hearing component?
Just a question. If this text amendment wasn't on the table or was off the table, would this same size building be allowed to be built here with just different setbacks?
Commissioner Rowena, if the text amendment was not proposed and not approved, you would have a structure that would be required to be no greater than 12 feet off both sides, both off Chestnut Street and South Main Street. The building would generally occupy the entire lot from front to
I
back.
understand that.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, though, this text amendment is not making this structure larger. It's just placing it differently on the lot.
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
I would disagree with that, and that the text amendment allows us to provide a larger structure because we're complying with the parking regulations. And if we had to provide building on both sides of the site, it would reduce the site area available for parking, which would then reduce the number of residential units that we could provide.
Except the parking spaces could be inside, no?
They could, but you still have to access them. So it would limit the amount of building that we could put on the South Main Street side of the site and still provide safe vehicular access through or around that additional structure, while also meeting the lot coverage requirements and public realm requirements within the zoning regulations.
Well, the reason that I was asking is that, the public hearing on the text amendment, that doesn't matter. I withdraw my questions.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Thank you. I remember what I wanted to ask you before. I read that one of the businesses there, I believe, is a locksmith. And how did he make out, or what's going to happen to him in this deal? And were there any other businesses that are being displaced, and did you find places for them?
Commissioner Langalis, there are 4 storefronts fronting South Main Street. 2 of them was a deli that requested to break their lease. I think it was over a year ago now. They went out of business, and so those are empty. A 3rd storefront is currently occupied by our management office there, and then the 4th storefront is the locksmith. Under the URA, the Relocation Act, we're required to provide relocation assistance to the locksmith, so we can help him move and to a new location and provide some level of subsidy if he can't find another unit as cheap as he has there.
Okay, thank you. And this building, I believe this location is actually not in the flood zone. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. In thinking about either getting more units or changing the parking, the buildings along Water Street, of course, are all lifted and putting parking underneath. And it seems that finding more affordable units in senior housing is a goal. Is there a way to perhaps add a few more units by, I don't know, if you could put the parking underneath and lift it and bring it forward or something? I'm just putting, what, any ideas? Did you think about that?
To put subgrade parking?
Well, I don't know about subgrade, but at grade and then lift the building.
So the way that we have designed the building, the ground floor occupied space is amenity space and leasing office space. And then the rest of that ground floor is covered parking. And then we elevated the residential units up to be on floors 2 and above.
And once the building is fully leased, do you need the leasing office, or could you turn that into housing?
It would be ongoing management staff for the housing authority and for the residents.
Okay, so, but doesn't the housing authority have another office over by the train station?
So what the one of the things that we have been trying to do with our new developments, Commissioner, is to have on-site management. We feel that it is better for safety and for security, in particular in a senior building. The residents like having somebody there. So it is our goal to increase on-site management slowly over time as we redevelop buildings. The amount of space it takes up is marginal. At most a unit would be able to be squeezed in there. So we feel strongly that this is the best use of the space. My instructions to the architects were to maximize the number of units we can possibly fit on the site. I think Adam or Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that according to the regulations, we can only have gone to 72. Is that correct? Or
that's correct. We're proposing 68 when the regs max out at 72, and the 68 allows us to park at the half a parking space per unit. So 34 spaces are proposed.
Yeah, so we really, the goal was to maximize the space, and this is as close as we could get without having not insufficient parking for the residents and their aides or guests by design. That was really the goal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Timmy, this was one, this will be the first one that takes advantage of that new reg we put into place that gives the 50% density bump, provided that the units are at, I think it's 60% AMI or below. So technically any other development here would only be able to do 48 units. So the housing authority is able to net out another 20 units, all affordable. So, whereas generally, I think if this was a market rate, you'd see 5 workforce units, and now we're getting, 68 low-income housing units.
Any other questions for us at this time? And is it the commission's pleasure that not only would there be the public hearing for the text amendment, but also for the site plan? I know that there are 2 commissioners that are supportive of that concept. I just want to be sure that when we go forward with doing our notices, we do the appropriate notice for the appropriate applications.
I will make my suggestion a motion. I'd move that we hold a public hearing on the project itself, as well as the text amendment.
Is there a second for that motion? Diana has seconded. All right. Can we do this by a show of hands, or Brian? Okay.
Show of hands.
Let's do a show of hands. All those in favor of holding the public hearing? That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All those opposed? It's 1 and 2. Those that are abstaining? Alan? Okay. So the motion carries. We will be holding a public hearing for this. Thank you guys for the presentation tonight. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to hearing about the text amendment and the application.
And Mr. Bryce, I'm sorry to interrupt you and to belabor this. I just want to be sure that both would be then on September 17th.
I'll defer to staff on timing on that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Let's do them both at the same time.
That's great. Thank you very much for your time, everyone, this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next application is 7 Park Street. I'm going to turn it back to Galen. I'm glad you were able to join us. If you want to take it from here, you're still muted, so we can't hear you.
Thank you so much, Chapin. I really appreciate your taking this over. The next matter is 2025-53 CP. I just went to the eye doctor, so I'm not having trouble seeing a little bit. CSPR, BPC Capital Management, the 5th LLC, in care of Bradford P. Craighead, 7 Park Street. Construction of an addition to an existing historic structure and change of use to 11 dwelling units. Adam, are you ready to?
I'm ready if you guys are.
Yep, we're ready.
All right. All right. Good evening. Adam Blank of Wofsy Rosen. With me is Emma Dignati, my colleague from Wofsy Rosen for BPC Capital Management, owner of 7 Park. We've got an aerial up here showing you the property 7 Park, which is on the corner of Park and Lewis Street, right at the Norwalk Green. You can see the gazebo in the middle of the green, sort of directly across from this property. So that's sort of to give you some location. Emma is going to actually, my colleague Emma is going to handle the bulk of the presentation this evening. But this is a great historic preservation project. I just kind of wanted to emphasize for you. So 7 Park, it's zone CD3. And this would typically be an over-the-counter approval. You would never see or hear about it. And we've worked with your staff in the various departments to sort of ensure we're 100% zoning compliant on this. The only reason that you guys are seeing it is really 2 reasons, neither of which have to do with zoning compliance, but one, it's in the East Avenue Village District overlay. And so that triggered a peer review by BFJ. So we had to do that, which they've done, and you'll hear we're in good shape with BFJ on architectural review. And also it's in the coastal area management zone. You can see from this aerial, the river is like 7 or 8 properties away. So we're sort of nowhere near coastal resources, and you'll hear that there's no impact on coastal resources, but that's what's triggering this to be in front of you. But I think it's really a really nice historic preservation project that's not going to impact coastal resources, and you'll hear is compliant. We're compliant with BFJ's peer review. With that sort of very brief intro, I'll let Emma take it from here. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'll give a brief overview of the project, and then we'll hear from Wayne DeVanzo, the project engineer, as well as Frank Diurno, the project architect. And then we'll hear briefly as well from Alexandra Mock with respect to coastal resources. Also with us on the call tonight is Brad Craighead, the property owner. He won't give a formal presentation, but he is here and can answer any questions for ownership should anything pop up. So Seven Park is approximately 0.46 acres, which is just over 20,000 square feet. Located on the site currently is a historic home that has been used as an office in recent years. Our client would like to preserve and renovate the existing historic structure and develop the site with 11 residential apartments and 15 parking spaces, all of which will be adequately screened and will meet your zoning requirements. I also want to make clear that the proposal is only one building of multifamily housing, although the plans refer nominally to different buildings, Building A, Building B, Building C, and Annex. Those annotations are merely referring to different areas of the same building. They're all connected as one building. So the proposed development represents a significant improvement to the current state of the property. It ensures the preservation and restoration of an important historic building, and it will provide much needed multifamily housing to the Park Street and East Avenue neighborhood. It's in scale with the neighboring development as well over at 3 Park Street and the Norwalk Green area generally. And I also want to emphasize for you that even though this is a historic preservation project and the applicant may obtain waivers or modifications to the underlying zoning standards pursuant to your regulations, no such modifications are sought in this application because the plans fully comply with the underlying zoning regulations. This is just a simple and straightforward site plan application. We already have sign-offs from both fire and health. WPCA's only comment was to conduct routine flow monitoring to ensure sewer capacity, which we have no objection to doing. DPW did have a handful of very minor comments, all of which we have revised our plans to reflect and we've agreed to comply with. Similarly, TMP had a handful of minor comments. We've agreed to comply with all of them, and we're continuing to work with TMP to ensure that our plans are satisfactorily revised in response to their comments. We did respond in writing to both the DPW and TMP comments. We received preliminary comments from your staff also on July 30th, which again were benign, and we responded to those in writing, agreeing with the various comments and revising the plans to address those comments. Because this property is in the East Avenue Village District, like Adam mentioned, it's subject to a peer architectural review that was performed by BFJ Planning, and they issued a memo of their review on July 30th. BFJ issued approximately 14 comments. We provided written responses to that memo, agreeing with 13 of the 14 comments, and we either revised our plans to incorporate those comments or indicated in our response to BFJ that we would agree to the requested modifications. The only comment that BFJ made that we are pushing back on is a request that we not install Juliet-style balconies with box dormers. We believe those are well in keeping with the architectural style of the proposed building, and in fact that they're necessary for a semblance of open air access for the 2 units that would have these balconies. Our architect will go over this in more detail and show you some photos on this shortly. But additionally, I wanted to note that Todd Bryant from Heritage Resources did provide a narrative to you which confirms the historic character of the existing house and that the proposed renovations will be in keeping with the home's historic significance. Now, many of you may be familiar with our client, Brad Craighead, and his wife and partner, Tracy Craighead. Over the past 10 years, they've completed 8 different historic development projects in Norwalk, with 6 of the 8 in the East Avenue Village District, and they're located on and around the Norwalk Green. They have a reputation for architectural integrity and excellence, and their business model centers upon the adaptive reuse of neglected historic buildings, converting them from commercial office use to multifamily dwelling units. Brad and Tracy founded the Norwalk Green Association to build community and promote the historic area surrounding the iconic green. Their properties focus on upscale architecture with classically designed elements, coupled with dedicated outdoor space and professionally landscaped gardens. Their apartment's signature characteristics include high ceilings with abundant natural light, and they appeal to a demographic that seeks privacy and a very high standard for quality, detail, and elegant finishes. Brad also serves on the board of the Sustainable Streets Movement, and Tracy chairs the Norwalk Earth Day Festival, which, as you know, is an annual event centered on the Norwalk Green. They also recently completed renovations just down the street at 3 Park, which is very, very similar to what is proposed in this application at 7 Park. And on the screen, you will see pictures of 3 Park here, and I'll scroll through them slowly as I continue talking. And as I mentioned previously, we're proposing 11 units of housing, which will include 1 workforce housing unit, and the developer will pay, an inclusionary zoning fee for the fractional remaining 1 extra unit. The site is currently covered by approximately 70% impervious surfaces. The redevelopment of the site will result in a slight decrease in impervious surfaces, and it will also result in a more substantial landscaping plan for the site, as you will see on the landscaping plans, with a very large 2,700 square foot recreation area where only 1,650 square feet of recreation area are required. And also, as demonstrated by the traffic evaluation from SLR compared to the site's current use, the development is generally proposed to generate fewer new vehicle trips, and it will not result in any significant roadway impacts at the intersections bordering the property. As we've mentioned, this property is in the coastal area management zone. However, coastal resources were not identified within the boundary of the property, nor is the property located within the FEMA established coastal flood hazard area. The property lies over 600 feet from the Norwalk River, and it's separated from the river by commercial and residential properties, sidewalks, and even roads. So no adverse impacts are expected at all regarding coastal resources, and no specific mitigation plans are necessary. The application is fully consistent with the stated goals and policies of the Coastal Area Management Act. So now I'll turn it over to Wayne DeVanzo, the project engineer, who will be followed by Frank Dierno, the project architect, and then Alex Mock on cam. Wayne, excuse me.
Thank you, Emma. For the record, Wayne DeVanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. Emma, could you take your screen out so I could put up the site plan? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is our site plan. We will be modifying the traffic flow to be one way in on Park Street and out on Lewis Street. We are providing a new 4-foot concrete sidewalk along Lewis Street. I'm sorry, 4-foot concrete, 4-foot wide sidewalk along Lewis Street, and a 5-foot wide sidewalk along Park Street, which will narrow to accommodate the existing tree that is on Park Street. Will narrow down to 4 feet in that area, so that it won't have any adverse impact on the tree. We're providing 2 new concrete aprons on each of the on the entry and exit of the property, and the required 15 parking spaces consisting of the 3 parallel ones on the northern property along the northern property line, and the remaining 12 on the western side, which will include a handicap space. The blue area that you see will be the pervious paver parking area, which is going to provide the retention volume underneath it with 12 inches of crushed stone aggregate. That will be our retention system in essence to mitigate the 2 through 100-year storms and comply with the Norwalk drainage manual. That is essentially it, and be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions at this point?
I have one small question. Down at the Lewis Street side, there seem to be 3 rectangular protuberances coming out of the building. What are they?
I believe the architect could probably answer that, but you're referring to these rectangular areas?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
okay.
couldn't see what they were on the plan. Okay,
They're-
thanks.
They're window wells for the below grade apartments.
Oh, okay, thank you.
If no further questions, we can turn it over to Frank now to continue on the architectural aspects of the project.
I just want to make a statement. I'm going to have to log out. I just received a call that I need to pay attention to. So, you guys can proceed without me. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Frank?
Yes, good evening, Commission. I am the architect of record, Frank Diurno. I've been working with Brad on several projects, having just completed 3 Park Street. I am happy to work on this next one for 7 Park Street and have brought a lot of that inspiration from Brad and Tracy on what their vision is of keeping this Noir green and apartment living and community sense to the area. Emma, can you bring up the screen on the updated drawings for me?
Yes, yep. Pull that right in.
So we're going to go to page 6.
Mm-hmm. This one?
Yep.
All right.
So the project consists of an addition at the west and south side of the existing Levy Clark house. The existing Levy Clark house is going to be apartment 1, 2 floors, 3-bedroom apartment. The additions total about 10,500 square feet. To the west and south are 10 other apartments, 1 and 2-bedroom apartments. We are providing one of the moderate income units, workforce housing. That would be apartment 2. And what keeps this as one building is the interconnection of, you can see as we label it, building A, B, and C. The annex building is connected to the back of the existing Levy Clark house. But part of this design, and you could see that in the pictures you looked at 3 Park Street, is having access ways that make this feel much more residential and not a housing development building. So it actually separates the scale and offers really a gesture to the front building, which is the Levy Clark Historic Building. So we're in kindness separating just to create some community places to walk, to sit. You can see in the middle of this project is an open plaza to the lower level, and then an intermediate walking area, which is open patio, which again offers the community and the tenants a place to go to while they're facing the Noir Green. We can go to page 7. So there is a lower level grade. We call that below grade apartments, which is 2,500 square feet of new addition, approximately. And then 3 stories above that, above grade, again, 25 to 2,600 square feet per floor. You see open walkthroughs, you see access points. Everyone has got their own door. There, in case they may share an entry point, but this isn't a long corridor building. We are sensitive to the Noir Green, and you see that in 3 Park Street. We can go to page 8, Emma.
Mm-hmm.
We could start with the top, first elevation on top. This is facing Park Street. The Lewis Street is to the left, and the Levy Clark house is what we're looking at with the additions to the rear. Going scale and roof lines are very sensitive to the existing building. Fascias, eaves, scale brought down. We are bringing this thing within the envelope of the aesthetic of Park Street. If you look at the next elevation right below that, this is south facing. There are some sight lines from Park Street looking at the Levy Clark House. And again, this building is set back substantially from the street face of Park Street. Part of the BFJ comments were to reduce the amount of dormers on the composition facing Park Street. So we did that in the top elevation. We did remove some of the dormers. So just to lessen the amount of appendages on the roof. These two box bays that here facing Lewis Street was one of the comments that we are responding in kind to keeping as to removing. This was brought up very eloquently by Emma about keeping some open space, not putting in balconies, but having a doorway with more glass with a Juliet balcony to give that to the 2 units here. And we have a picture from 3 Park Street we could bring up, Emma, now. There it is. This is the 2nd floor box bay with the Juliet balcony. We want to repeat on Lewis Street for the new project. There's only 2, and if you go back to the elevation page, bringing the scale out and creating some interest on this elevation is really the other reason to do it, without exceeding that 2-foot mark and just putting a very soft balcony against that. Go down the page to the next elevation. This shows you a slice through the plaza and open patio that's below grade, open space that all the residents could look down onto. There's connecting walkways, 1 building, but there is similar places for people to go and congregate and use this open space without having to walk across the street. The next elevation, Emma. This is facing west parking lot area, which we are Lewis Street's to the right. And you can see when you first park in this building coming in from the one-way Park Street, the tenants have this walkthrough that actually is their entry points. There are no doors facing outward to the parking lot or to Lewis Street. They're all inclusive of the walkways and accesses. Privacy and a sense of home are brought through this idea. And then we can go down to the last elevation, Emma. So there is the Levy Clark House, north elevation, and then the connection with the building that's attached towards the west of the Levy Clark House. You can see window wells and railings that are around the new additions. We have three units below grade that we are absolutely offering large windows, window wells to every unit. Again, we don't want it to feel like they're in anything but a very natural light space in all of the spaces of their unit and have that sense of still being part of this building without feeling below grade. I think that's all I have at this point for the architectural explanation.
Are there any questions for Frank?
I just would like to comment that I thought that the BFJ comments were very good.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that you have agreed with so many of them.
Very helpful.
If nothing else, we can move on to Alex Mock on CAM briefly.
Good evening. My name is Alexandra Mock, and I would like to talk a little bit about environmental aspects of the proposal. And I would like to notice that we are located more than 700 feet away from the tidal section of the Norwalk River. And therefore, there is no physically possible to impact this river with our development. But there may be two phases of the development which could potentially have some impact. We're talking about the short impact phase, which is during the construction. And as we all know, the site could be disturbed. And during the storm event, some of the erosion can happen and go to the storm drains on the street. And this could be carried to the river. We are actually going to accommodate this, and we're going to be fully preventing this from happening. We are proposing professionally designed location of the soil erosion controls. We're going to have a silt fence. We're going to have the stockpile area, which also going to be surrounded by silt fence, and we are going to have the access, the construction access, and the tracking pad, which will prevent any vehicles coming to the site and exiting the site from tracking silt on the tires. So with our professionally designed soil erosion control program, there will be no potential for any of the siltation getting out of the site. In terms of the long-term potential, there's going to be more of impervious surface. So we are going to be addressing this fully. At the current situation, we have a parking area, which is not permeable. We are going to be upgrading this by offering pervious surface, which is going to be naturally infiltrating stormwater, and therefore we're not going to have any increase in stormwater runoff as a result of the development. Also, our green space is going to be more improved by the landscaping, and we are fortunate that we do not have to remove any of the trees. Therefore, in terms of the potential for short-term or long-term impacts, the project is not going to have any of them on the coastal area of the Norwalk River. And I'm here if you have any questions.
If there are no questions for Ms. Mock, then I will just summarize and say that we believe this application fully complies with your regulations and that the project represents a wonderful addition to Park Street, and we hope that you all will look favorably upon it. And thank you for your time.
Hey, does anybody have any further questions?
Not a question, but as a brief comment, as someone who lives near the green and frequently walks past 3 Park Street, I appreciate having the front patio with seating out there. It is nice to like say hi to folks and walking by. So I was really happy to see that that was part of this project as well, to have that front patio space as well.
Wonderful.
Adam and Emma, you guys got a memo later this afternoon from TMP. I'm not sure if anything on there was concerning to you or.
No, I think they had just a few little comments that you can make as a condition of approval, and we'll work through. There were nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just say, the architecturals, I don't think do it justice. If you have the opportunity to go over to 3 Park and just kind of nose around, wander through that project, it's really awesome, and it's got all these sort of nooks and crannies and kind of open space. It doesn't feel like an apartment building, and it's lovely, and this is going to be awesome as well. And in fact, I have friends that live in 3 Park and love it.
Wonderful.
I appreciate the fact that you kept the tree, Brad. It adds a lot to the site.
Any other questions?
Thanks. I'm just gonna say trees are important. Trees are important, and we love the location. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, is there a motion to approve?
Hey, Galen, I'll make that motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Galen, you got muted, sorry.
Yeah, Okay, so this is the proposed
This is the resolution.
resolution, right? What were TMP's
Oof.
comments that need to be incorporated? Have those been incorporated here?
Yeah, I just made that tweak here. So I updated it to reference their latest memo from today. And then I'm just realizing that I'm copying and pasting things from regulations that were effective 2 years ago. So uh,
Does anybody have any suggestions for additional conditions?
No, that I agree with Brian's edits.
Okay, are we ready to do a roll call vote on this motion to approve? Brian, can you do a roll call vote, please?
sure. Miss Lankowski,
Yes.
Mr. Bryce,
Yes.
Mr. Schulman,
Yes.
Miss Langalis,
Yes.
Mr. Rowena,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
and Miss Wells.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our next matter, which is 2025-48 SP Enrico Constantini Esquire, 284 New Canaan Avenue. There were two matters on here for public hearings. We are going to open the public hearing, and as I understand it, continue it till another meeting date.
Yeah, and then I think you guys were going to discuss, we had Rick stay on to discuss the potential of doing a site visit and seeing if you were all interested in scheduling a site visit.
Yeah, I'd be interested in a site visit.
I would.
Same.
Okay, let's do schedule a site visit.
Just a reminder for those who participated in the site meeting we had out at the tavern, Silvermine Tavern, probably 3-4 months ago. It's a public meeting where the neighbors are allowed on the property. There is zero communication outside of asking me logistic questions, no interaction from the public. The public cannot speak. Really no discussion amongst the commission members on the merits of the application, no communication with the applicant. I'll just be there, or Amelia will be there, just pointing out basic logistics of things, where items have been modified, where they're requesting additional modifications and so forth, just to make sure we're all on the same page before that even gets scheduled, and staff can work with the applicant on a date, and we'll get back to you and see if that works on your end as well.
Okay, wonderful. And I will open this, and we're continuing it to another meeting. Do we want to schedule that subsequent meeting today?
Yeah, if we can have you guys make a motion to open and continue the hearing to your September 3rd meeting at 6 p.m. via Zoom, that would be great.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about that, Brian? Does it make sense to have the site meeting before you do that meeting?
Yeah, I would think, well, we still, since we're opening and continuing, should we just do that, and then in the meantime schedule the site visit to be prior to the 3rd?
My only worry is that the 3rd is actually might be a little tight.
Okay.
If we have if we have statutory time to punt it till the 2nd September meeting for the hearing, assuming Mr. Constantini can work with that and that works for his team, then I think that would make more sense to give us more options for scheduling a site meeting.
All right, so then the motion would be to continue to September 17th at 6 p.m. via Zoom.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion on both of those items, both 48 and 49.
Okay,
I'm happy to second. Yep.
and Chapin seconds. We can do a roll call vote.
Sure. We'll go in reverse order. Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Rowena,
Yes.
Ms. Langalis,
Yes.
Mr. Schulman,
Yes.
Mr. Bryce,
Yes.
Ms. Lankowski,
Yes.
and Ms. Wells.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We will then move on to the zoning regulation changes. Ryan, I think you're gonna
Yeah, I'll pull.
present those.
It's so like before, I think each time we tell you we think this is the last batch of regulations we're going to change, and then we find more things that we need to change. At this point, I can't keep track of how they come up, but they keep coming up. So the first one here that we're proposing, some of these were related to the recent LaJoie's approval for 40 Meadow Street. This one is specific to the light industrial zone and potentially allowing more materials to be used as facade materials or building materials for new structures. So one of the changes was to potentially allow sheet metal or corrugated metal as a building material within the light industrial zone. And then we did receive comments from the architect who did design that building, who said that they were also planning on using aluminum siding. So I think one thing that might get revised here is the idea of potentially allowing aluminum siding as well, or at least for you guys to consider that. And I'll forward you their email detailing the materials they were planning on using. And then what we wanted to do is just add an additional text that if you do use one of those materials, that it can only be for industrial uses. So if you had some other use that was permitted, or if you're doing an industrial use on the first floor and you had residential above, that the residential component would not be made out of the corrugated metal or aluminum siding. Number 2 was to add in an expiration date for zoning permits. This will change. We looked into the statutes, and the statutes have kind of a long-winded way of saying site plans are good for at least 5 years. And technically, when you issue a zoning permit, you are issuing a site plan approval. So this will change to be a minimum of 5 years or maximum 5 years. And then if you do not secure a building permit within that time, your zoning permit is expired. Artist live work and live work uses. So this was one I think that I probably saw as I was working on other amendments, and just seeing how the use itself seems pretty benign. It's essentially an artist would have a workspace on their first floor and then they would live above it, whether it's a loft or a second floor. I think when we originally wrote it, we had a specific applicant in mind years ago who was applying for it. So we kind of tailored a regulation to allow that to happen. And then just looking at it is trying to make it a little bit easier, since it seems such a benign use. It's similar to like a mixed use building where you'd have commercial on the first floor and residential above. So we would do these as administrative approvals and then tie some limitations to it specific to where things can be stored and keeping them inside. And then just a couple things for you guys to think of, and I don't know if these are, if you agree or disagree with them, was another way to incentivize them would be to almost count them as half a unit instead of 1 unit. And then to exempt them from workforce housing regulations, with the idea that if the artist is living and working in the same space, that it's almost a de facto affordable unit. So just a couple ideas for you guys to think about. And then we would mirror almost those same regulations for live work uses, which are similar, but I think allow for different uses to be located on the first floor than just an artist use. Number 4, we have the encroachment table. So there's certain things that can encroach into setbacks that are customarily associated with structures. So this one is specific to eaves, gutters, or downspouts. Right now, the regulation allows them to project into a setback by no more than 24 inches or 20% of the setback. The issue with that is when you get into the larger single-family zones, 20% of the setback can be a pretty significant amount. So what we want to do is just clarify that it's whichever is less. So you'd get in those zones, you'd get no more than 24 inches. And then if you get into the smaller zones, it's roughly the same. Their setbacks are anywhere between 5 or 6 feet. So that the 20% would probably take effect. Number 5 has 3 components to it, all related to variances or nonconformities. So the first one is to modify the definition of variance, just to reference that there are ordinance language pertaining to variances, which tell a person who got a variance how much time they have to obtain a zoning permit from the issuance of that variance. So it's just kind of procedural. And we just want to reference that so that folks know that those apply to their variances once they're issued. The second change is it's called a merger clause. It's essentially when you have 2 abutting parcels of land that are non-conforming, most likely due to size, and they're under common ownership. The zoning regulations automatically merge those lots into one, regardless of whether that was ever the intent of the property owners. So we're proposing to delete that text. The point of the merger clause is it reduces nonconformities technically, but it also at the same time removes legal building lots. So I would think, if that allowing more legal building lots may be a preference, especially when these are probably most likely in single family zones where people are looking just to construct a new house. There are ways where if this happens, like the lots are merged via the zoning regulations, that you can unmerge them. It's you go to the ZBA and you get a special exception to put the lot line back in. So what this would do is essentially just eliminate that step. It would just keep them separate. And then the third change, and this relates to both the special permits and variances, is there's a reference that if the property is within a historic district, that it gets referred to the Historic District Commission. I checked and confirmed we don't have a historic district and we do not have a Historic District Commission, so we're proposing just to delete those lines. If we ever do get a historic district and a Historic District Commission, then we will refer applications to them and put that text back in. Six is frontage build out. This is the minimum percentage that a new building has to occupy along the frontage of the property. So mostly for mixed use zones. It's just to put a definition in for what frontage build out is. We've gotten to a couple of arguments with some folks about what that means. So we will clarify what that means. Seven is sports fields. So what we'd like to do is to differentiate when a sport field is a principal use versus when a sport field is a accessory use. So as part of that, we would propose to not allow sport fields as principal uses in any zones other than civic districts, so city-owned properties. And then when it's an accessory use, it would be a special permit with limitations tied to it in all of the zones except for civic, where it would be a little bit more streamlined. The reason why it would be a special permit in all zones as an accessory use is because there might be schools that are not city-owned schools that would put in sport fields. So we want to give them the opportunity to do so, but we want to be able to take a look at the size and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the limitate, yeah.
Does that only apply to outdoor sport fields? What about indoor fields like the one on Martin Luther King Drive?
I can take a look and see if the sport field definition differentiates between enclosed versus open. It might be called a commercial recreation establishment versus sport field. I'll check it. So it should apply to both. I would imagine even if it's indoors, you'd still want to see it as a special permit.
Yeah,
in those circumstances.
the commercial rec has size requirements. We tried to put that into the CD3C zone, which is like the Route 1 main Ave corridor. And that, if you get anything significantly sized, that requires a special permit.
Okay.
And so with the limitations we came up with, these are mostly pulled from the old regulations. The one new addition is that the lighting would be dark sky compliant, but the measurements and the time are the same as under the old regulations. And then limiting duration of when it could be lit, audio systems, and then also what it can be accessory to. So we put in here parks, golf clubs, college or universities, elementary or secondary schools, schools or institutions, or school or institution for the disabled, or trade or vocational school. So those are the only uses where a sport field can be accessory to. Number 8 is it's essentially stating that swimming pools, hot tubs, and spas are considered accessory structures and that they'd have to comply with all accessory structure setbacks. So what we would do is there's a line in each zone right now that lists non-building components. And it lists swimming pools, hot tubs, and spas. So we would delete that from all of the zones. And then within the definitions for accessory building or structure, we would state that swimming pools, hot tubs, and spas are considered to be accessory structures. One thing that's kind of up in the air right now is a max length in which a breezeway or roof passage can be between a principal and accessory building before they're considered attached or detached. Kind of the idea is we don't want somebody to put in like a 40-foot long breezeway and say, oh, well, now my garage is attached to my house. We wanted to kind of come up with a max length there. So if you have any suggestions, we're open to that. Otherwise, we'll do some more research into typical breezeway and roof passageway lengths, and we'll put a distance in there. Nine, I have a meeting set up with TMP tomorrow to discuss this one a little bit further. So for certain applications, TMP would like a little bit more flexibility on how wide a driveway or a curb cut can be. Mostly limited to within the CD3C large scale commercial developments, which are essentially grocery stores. And in the industrial zones, when they have larger trucks trying to make turns into driveways. So I will chat with them tomorrow and get some more clarity on what those distances or widths would be, and then we'll plug those in for you guys to review.
Brian, just to go back to the pool thing for a second.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry to not do it before. Is the amount of space that a pool takes up on the ground considered lot coverage, or is it taken into consideration when you figure lot coverage, like we're doing patios now?
I'll ask Tammy. I think in-ground pool, we said no, and I don't know about above ground. I hope it's no for both. But in-ground pool definitely does not count towards coverage.
That's not. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it might seem that you might want it to with some smaller lots that have a swimming pool and taking up a lot of lot coverage for, impervious surface, even though it's water on the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. 10 is screening of dumpsters. So with the new trash pickup procedure in Norwalk, there may be some pre-existing non-conforming multifamily residences in most commonly the CD2 zone, so that usually where we'd only allow 2-family housing. And so because they may no longer get trash picked up, they are potentially getting dumpsters, and in some cases they have gotten dumpsters and they put them out at the street, which is unsightly and causing some complaints. So in these circumstances, what we want to do is say, if you do get a dumpster and you're using it for trash, that you have to store it in the rear yard. You cannot put it at the front of your property. So it's just a little bit of a clarification for some limited amount of properties. Uh, 11, this came up for the 40 Meadow Street application. It's to increase the max height that a fence can be at the front of a property in the industrial zones. 40 Meadow Street said they wanted a taller fence for security reasons. So we'd proposing to give them a little bit more flexibility to, instead of a 3.5-foot max, we'd go up to a 6-foot max. Number 6 is a section about absent elements. And it essentially says if there's no sidewalks present in front of a property that's putting in a new house, or there's no street trees or something like that, that the person has to install those. We've run into some issues with that, in which, for example, the city isn't planning on putting sidewalks in. So we did put in some flexibility in the past to make it more discretionary for TMP to make that decision. But what we wanted to do is further limit it to not apply to the construction of new single-family houses, or for subdivisions where you, as the commission, have agreed to waive the inclusion of sidewalks or street trees. So still limiting when it would apply. But trying to avoid conflicts between when a new house going in, having to put in a sidewalk could be a significant ask. So kind of giving some relief to new single-family houses.
Brian, we went through the application of those 2 properties on Samus Street. One was a new construction and one was being completely lifted, and they both got away without doing sidewalks. I think that was a huge mistake. And there are plenty of streets in Norwalk that don't have sidewalks. And if somebody is putting something new or doing a lift, if it's in the flood zone, I think we should make them put the sidewalk, because sooner or later, especially if they're in the flood zone, the houses on other sides might get lifted as well. And then you would have the opportunity to have a sidewalk down that side of the street. And if you get rid of it, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, and I think it's worth us chatting a bit more with TMP. So some of the things that can happen is a new house goes in and we say, all right, you have to put the sidewalk in, but the city wasn't planning on putting sidewalks in for another 10 or 15 years. So you kind of get this piecemeal approach to sidewalk installation. So perhaps something like, instead of them putting the sidewalk in, they put some money into a fund that eventually helps when the city comes in and installs the sidewalks along that whole street and does it all at once.
Okay, but maybe this is a TMP issue, but a safe haven, even if it's only one property width wide in some narrow streets, is better than nothing. And to wait for 10 years just because it would be more convenient, I don't think that's a really good reason to not make somebody that's building a new construction not put in the sidewalk. And the argument that, well, the house on either side doesn't have it either isn't a good argument, because sooner or later those houses could change.
I think there's another piece to this too. I think we have to make sure we have the ability to require that for a single family house. I don't know if we've got legislative authority to do that. I know what the regulations say, but I'm not quite sure that lines up with state statute.
Okay, well, maybe you can find that out, Steve.
Yep.
That would be helpful, I think. I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but
Agreed.
Do more digging.
thank you. Sorry to make you more work.
That's all right.
I know you do a lot.
13, I think this is the last one. This was the one that I think I added late and sent to you. It's a lot of text, but essentially what it does is it allows for more frontage types to be included for different building types or within different zones. So like, for example, this step front is a frontage type within the regs. It's not permitted in the CD3C, but it's how the reg defines it is typically associated with retail or residential uses. So we figured we may as well allow it. So it would be a modification to allow step fronts and shop fronts to both be permitted in the CD3C zone, which is the Route 1 corridor essentially. Terrace and light wells, which is pictured here, to permit those in the CD2 for, duplexes might want to do a configuration that looks like this. So we figured we'd allow that as well. And then one of the things that we were running into, and this again came up with 40 Meadow Street, was a lot of the frontage types, how they were defined, and under the pictures for them as how they were described, was it stated where on the property the private frontage type would be located. So the issue we were having is the regs already say for most of the mixed use zones that the building has to be located pretty much at the street. So we don't really need more language to say, but it has to be close to the street because we're already telling you that the building has to be there. But there were zones like the light industrial zone and for 40 Meadow Street where they don't have a maximum setback. They could set the building back 30, 40 feet. In their case, it's located where the building's always been located. But this text saying that it has to be aligned very close to the front property line, technically they're not doing that. So then technically they are not complying with this regulation. So what we're trying to say is if this frontage type is allowed in the zone, you can put it at the front of any building that you're building. And there's other regs in place that will tell you where the building can be located. So we don't think we need this text that we're proposing to delete. And then with that, what we wanted to do is allow for some of these more commercial oriented frontage types to be allowed on multifamily structures so that you could put in something that looks like this on what's just a multifamily house. And maybe behind this, they put their amenity space in or a lobby or something or a mail room. And it would still look on the outside like a building that we would like to see. But the use and the structure itself comply with the regulations. So it's kind of a long-winded way of saying we wanted to allow frontage types that we already allowed to be located in within more building types and more commercial zones.
Brian, I have a question about the terrace and the light wells. Does that
Sure.
include the stairs as well?
Yeah, so this would, so the stairs, if you're doing a terrace light well, it would have the stairs, though, like a stoop going up, and then you'd have the sunken unit below.
So the stairs there are perpendicular. I've also seen stairs that run adjacent to the facade. Would this prohibit the stairs running adjacent to the facade?
I don't think so. I think this is just for like graphic purposes, but I think, I wonder if I had stoop in here included.
One thing that we were talking about the other day when we were looking at this is adding more actual photos of examples of these. So just to give like a broader kind of palette of different ideas for the designers out there. So that's something we'll probably work on later in the year, I would guess early next year.
I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah. So that, I could see like somebody might say, well, I have to put the stairs running perpendicular to the building, where we would say, I don't think the wording of the definition says it has to be perpendicular. I think it probably just says that there needs to be stairs going up to the first floor and then a lower access for the other door.
Thank
I think that's my last change. A lot of this is very similar text, leading aligned close to the frontage line, and allowing these more commercial looking ones for residential uses if it's for amenity or lobby space. I think that's it.
And just to confirm, this is just a preview tonight, right? This is something we'll be hearing later this year.
Yeah, unless there's any crazy objections, what we'll do is fill in some of those things that needed a little bit more tweaking, and then hopefully have this back before you for a hearing in October, November timeframe.
Great.
Great. Okay, well, we're ready to move on to the acceptance of minutes. Acceptance of the minutes of August 6th, 2025.
Move their approval.
Okay, is there a second? Okay,
Tammy,
all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay,
And then I forgot to add the July 16th minutes. We didn't have a quorum at the last meeting, so we didn't vote on them. I think you can add an item to your agenda via a vote. Otherwise, we'll just wait till the next meeting to approve those if you're more comfortable doing it that way.
you mean just add them verbally to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd have to look at your bylaws to see what the procedure is to add an item. So maybe we just wait.
Let's
till
I
just-
think it's better to just wait, because
Okay.
I'm not sure how we can do that, frankly.
Sounds good. All right, that'll be on your next one then. So try to remember what happened on July 16th.
Okay. Are there any comments of the director?
Just very briefly, we've been interviewing for the last week, and then this week we interviewed 5 vendors for online permitting, which would be a citywide application. Those were interviews that started at about 8:15 in the morning. They finished up a little after 5. So we did that for last week and this week. So we're done. So we'll hopefully have a vendor on board, and then by the middle of September, with the idea hopefully by sometime, I'm going to guess probably January of 2027, we'll have moved to a new platform. So everything will be online permitting in terms of not just your applications, but just all the, zoning permits, building permits, and all that will be moved that way, which lines up well with a lot of the other scanning activities we've been doing. The tax cards are all scanned. They're just kind of cleaning up the last batch now. So we're hoping before the end of this year that all the historic tax cards will be online and available for viewing for folks, which saves, people time and money. I think just not having to go to City Hall, request the records, they get dug up from storage, and then they got to scan and copy stuff. So this will moving it kind of into the 21st century. They're also scanning building permits now, historic building permits, and that's probably going to be a multi-year project just based on the volume of the building permits. And then they're going to do the zoning permits. And then hopefully at the end of the day, there's kind of a one-stop shop where people can go and kind of link to all the building permit information, tax information, anything land-based about your property should hopefully be accessible through some kind of connected portal on the city end. But that's, still a couple years out, but we're, finally working on it and making good progress on that.
Oh, that's great.
And how have the interviews been?
From my perspective, I think we had, I think 10 or 11 applicants, and we shortlisted it down to 5 to interview. And the 5 from the software perspective, I think they're all pretty similar, so they can do everything we need them to do. And now it's just getting a comfort level with whoever we want to work with, plus looking at the price as well. So I think everybody, and speaking with like we have a consultant that's helping us through the process, and he said, at this point, he goes, if the software vendors are not all like at the same level in terms of what they offer product wise, that they're almost going out of business at this stage. So everybody's kind of having to up their game or they're not surviving.
All right, thank you.
Any
Yep.
comments of commissioners? Do any commissioners have comments?
I've been complaining for a year about a number of issues, so it's only fair that I was by the Pearl today and the fountain is working.
Wow.
Louis, I complain about stuff every day and nobody listens. So
What a good day for a water fountain to be working too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, the first cool
Truly.
day.
First rainy day.
Yeah, raining. Yeah, it's raining all day. Exactly.
Speaking of complaints, have we heard any follow-up on the Silver Mine Tavern, the Gray Barns?
So the applicant is working through the building permit process. He had a whole list of things he had to do in order to comply with all the city staff requirements. The neighbors did appeal the approval, so that'll end up in court. From our end, I'm pretty confident in what the outcome will be, but that's a 12 to 18-month process once it actually gets started.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Was it neighbor singular or neighbors plural?
Good question. I'd have to look at the complaint again. It might be plural. There might have been, if it was plural, it wasn't a lot in terms of plural.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, does anyone have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Okay. And Darius seconds. All those in favor? Okay, great. We are adjourned.
We're gonna have a
Thank
good
you all.
Good night.
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 Good night.
Good night. See you soon.